Hello,
Hello.
how are you?
Okay. How are you?
I'm done.
Excellent.
I mean, done-ish.
Oh,
Done pending whatever we do tonight.
okay. Well,
So, yeah. And
maybe,
was that meeting actually today?
yeah, this morning.
It's interesting. So, because I didn't hear from Jean either that there was a meeting, that she was invited, that she was going. I mean, the problem is, I think each of us also, we're just chit-chatting, but we are on YouTube as well as being recorded here. But I think everyone's approaching this as well, even if they're representing other organizations from their, more than in most cases, from their individual perspective. So, which is natural because it's a topic everyone has an individual perspective on. Hi, Teresa. Oh, you're home.
You're
Oh,
muted.
you're also mute.
Hi, everybody. Sorry, yes.
Hello.
Hi.
Is it just you guys?
So far, nobody
Okay.
here. So far, and it's only 7:01.
Thank you very much for that motion, Steve. It had already come to me through someone from CFAC. It's actually we're gonna talk about it tomorrow, and I'll put it on the tree committee agenda.
Cool.
Oh, you were on that email
Yeah,
also.
I was on the email. Yeah, was it from Steve? I don't even know anymore. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, it was from
That
Steve.
kind of week. It's been that kind of few days anyway. But that's it's an interesting motion because it's interesting who made it.
Well, let me just say, Mary Ann King is a CFAC rep. She's a retired city planner. She's been very, very effective at working with him and getting things through CFAC. So I give her a lot of credit for that.
Hi, Greg. Is this 2 times in 2 days? Except you're muted.
It is. Did David tell you that it was me, or did you recognize my tender voice?
I knew who it was. I was just officially answering the work phone and had to say, what? No, you came in with your name. I didn't recognize your voice.
Like, okay. Okay.
But I still, it's been a little while, a few years.
It's been a minute, as they say.
Yes.
So it's good to be sort of like, I want to get back in the saddle. How's that? How exciting, huh?
How exciting. Yes, that is exciting. So we always, unfortunately, start this meeting just a little bit late, like 5 after.
Okay.
Well, welcome. But it's people straggle in, and since we do these we do introductions and identifications, that it doesn't make sense to start before at least a lot of people are here as people are walking into the room. Hello. We don't need quorum for this one, but
okay.
But thank you for coming.
I thought you needed quorum for everything.
Yeah, quorum for a committee is the chair or co-chairs.
Didn't know. That's why we came.
Okay. So we have a couple of agendas and a couple of copies of a letter. These long letters. Okay. What time is it?
Are we started?
Well, no.
Okay.
We're chit-chatting.
Quick chit chat is I just came in and was coming back when Wilshire Tow had 6 vehicles on the sidewalk.
Oh, of course they did.
Okay, and I stopped, went and took pictures, tried to get a video. I was walking the sun, the video didn't work. But I went on and spoke to the guy with the forklift, and I said, this is a violation. You cannot park city cars on the sidewalk. And he goes, well, everybody breaks the law.
Oh, good.
No, everybody does not break the law.
Yeah.
And I asked, were there any supervisors on the premises? And he said, pointing me down the road, and I started walking down, there's an African-American guy who goes, kept calling me Karen, we don't have to listen to you. I said,
You're a Karen?
I'm a Karen. I go, well,
Okay.
and he said,
Just make a note of it and send us, just make a note of it with the
I
date
forwarded
and
on
the time.
to Siobhan, because I knew she was working on
Because
it.
she's right there.
And,
There she is.
but the
Okay.
idea that the conventional operating wisdom of Wilshire Toe is that everybody breaks the law.
Yeah,
I said,
well-
actually, no, everybody doesn't.
Okay, well,
But anyway,
okay, and we'll be able to talk about that at some point tonight,
Okay.
but we're gonna have to get through the stated agenda items first.
right.
And it's official, it's 7:05, so I'd like to call the meeting to order.
Yes.
So, welcome, everybody. I'm Laura Myers. I am the chair of UNNC's Planning and Zoning Committee, and I also, at the moment, serve as its president. And I'm going to share the agenda. And again, for those who are new, that would only be one of you. It sometimes takes me a little bit of time to get my act together on sharing. But here we go. So for tonight, can you all see the agenda on the screen? Yes?
Yeah.
Tonight we will be doing the usual welcome, call to order, introduction, blah, 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 and general public comments on items not on tonight's agenda. And also items which are not, what am I trying to say? We have a follow-up to previous cases, so under that we can and will talk about Wilshire Toe, so it's not a general public comment. But there are other perhaps items people want to bring up that are not on the agenda. Then number 3 is a review of a draft letter, comment letter that we have for tomorrow night, but want to look at it tonight. See if anybody wants to add or subtract anything to it regarding the objective design standards that are being proposed and circulated by the planning department for infill projects in historic districts / HPOZs. And then if we get to it, we did not get to it last time, but if we get to it, item 4 is a quick look at the Starter Home Revitalization Act. Then only then we get to previous cases, follow up, or anything that was in the early notification system or old business, which is kind of all the same. And then the next meeting of the Planning and Zoning Committee is Wednesday, August 9th. That is when most likely we're taking up the Murphy oil drilling case. And there'll probably be a that 2 hours beyond that. Okay, welcome, call to order. We did that. Shared the agenda.
Actually, August 9th.
19th.
Oh,
19th.
19th. Okay,
19th.
that's a Sunday.
Yeah, no, August 19th, two weeks from now. And this is based on a timeline that the zoning administrator
Yep.
announced.
Okay,
at-
it was just, you said the 9th, so I wanted to
sorry.
make sure. it
Sorry.
worked.
Okay, so the review of UNNC standing rules for committee stakeholder participation. Basically, the way UNNC works is different than other neighborhood councils. The only person or persons officially on a committee would be the appointed chair or co-chairs. Other than that, are anyone who's a stakeholder participating in a given committee meeting on a given day or night is a full participant, may not just comment and discuss, but may make motions and may vote. They have to be a stakeholder. A stakeholder is anyone who lives, works, owns properties, owns a business, attends school, is a parent of a child who attends school, and or participates through a nonprofit 501c3 charitable organization, which has a brick and mortar address within the boundaries of the UNNC. So I am a stakeholder. My name is Laura Myers. I live in Angeles Vista, and if needed, yes, I will vote.
I live
So you
in,
have to say your name.
oh, my name's Demetrius Pohl. And I live in Western Heights. Been there for 37 years.
And you're here tonight as the
I'm here tonight as a representative of the HPOZ board.
for
okay.
Harvard Heights and Western
Sure,
Heights.
got it.
My name is Chris Carlson. I'm the area rep for Area 4. I'm a stakeholder. I live here. I've had a business here. I've raised 2 kids here, and I'm involved in numerous nonprofits here. So
There you go.
deep roots.
Multiple community stakeholder. Steve, I will be calling your names in the order I see them. So Steve.
Steve Peckman, long-term resident of Jefferson Park, stakeholder, and will vote on anything that we need to vote on.
Teresa.
Hey, everybody, Teresa Masonette. I'm a resident of the West Adams Avenues, stakeholder, and I will vote on anything that may come up and require my participation.
Greg.
Hi, everyone. Greg Travis. I've been around a while, actually. Laura and I go back 24 years. So recently retired, and I just thought one of the things I like to do is get back involved. And I'm a stakeholder. I live in Jefferson Park.
Thank you. Siobhan.
Siobhan O'Neill, area rep, also an area rep for Region 4. I am a stakeholder and also a business owner in the area. Yes, I will be planning to vote if there's anything to vote on.
Okay, thank you. All right, next item is general public comments on anything which is not on tonight's agenda.
I have a hand. Yes.
Thank you, Chris.
Just an update, and
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me remind those in the room on the protocol. We're being recorded as UNNC president, so you need to identify yourself when you speak.
Chris Carlson, area rep for Area 4, wanted to give an update on the beautiful tree planting that was done on 21st Street. Turned out KYCC, one of their watering people was not fully watering. They weren't filling the bags. And as a consequence, we may have 3 trees that may be crashing. But KYCC, Tom Roselle, was quite on top of it, and he was checking and he reported it, and apparently that person is no longer part of the watering team for KYCC. But I just wanted to share that there was a glitch in the idea that there was going to be consistent watering. He was coming by and only partially filling the bags because his route, we were like the last stop, and he was low on water. He wasn't going back and refilling. And when the other guy found out about it, there's been a change in personnel. So I wanted to report that there was a problem, but it appears to have been addressed.
Okay.
The trees may still die, but we hope not.
That's really good to know. Thank you very much, Chris. And also, if by chance any of the trees die, they are required to replace them. Let's hope not, but they are required as part of the grant to replace it within the 3-year period to replace.
Everyone on the block is really on top of it, watching them. We got some scale on one of the trees that was removed, and we got a lot of eyes on the prize, and that's how we caught the fact that the watering, even though the truck was coming, the water wasn't. So it appears to have been corrected, and let's hope, even with this heat, that the trees will pull through.
All right, that's great. Great to hear.
Okay, this is Laura speaking. I wanted to well, either I'm reminding you or you're hearing this for the first time, but we have a upcoming movie in the park on next Tuesday, August 11, and at Leslie Shaw Park, and it's Zootopia 2. If you have neighbors with kids, if you like going to the movies in the park, but that's on Tuesday evening, August 11, and possibly a little unknown to all of you, though we sent out a blast, but it was buried. The LAPD Police Museum is holding a carnival on Washington Boulevard. Not sure why they chose our neighborhood. They're the buildings in Highland Park. But they're holding a carnival, not this coming weekend, but the following weekend. So the street, Washington Boulevard between 10th Avenue and Crenshaw, will be closed starting Wednesday, August 19, and not reopening till Monday morning, whatever date that is. And the carnival itself is Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So Washington Boulevard between
It'll be
10th
the
Avenue.
19th to the 23rd.
That's a lot of days.
That's a lot of days, yeah.
It's a lot of days. It's particularly a lot of days if you're a business or the library on that route, but it's approved, and we'll try and do a standalone e-blast. No, that's not our job, but we'll do it. Okay, Teresa.
Laura, is this the carnival they used to have in that open lot at Venice? Planet Fitness skating rink lot? Is this the same?
I don't think so. This is a LAPD museum. A lot of different LAPD entities do these carnivals for fundraising, but I think it's usually like Friends of Wilshire District or something like that. So this one is for the museum. Again, I don't know why they selected our neighborhood, but they did. I think they might float around the city. I do know that they do need to raise a lot of funds because I didn't know this, but during last year's unrest, during the immigration, ICE things, people broke in and vandalized the museum and a lot of its objects. Yeah. So that I cannot imagine how the two are related, but it's what happened. So they are fundraising. All right. Any other? These are really non-related to this committee. Are there any other general public comment? And hearing none, we can move on to our next item. So this is a review. Well, we have a letter that we're going to review, but I think we need to start by just explaining what the objective design standards are. And I will say they're called the ODS. Letter O for objective, D for design, S for standards. But the reason I'm really pointing that out is they've earned a nickname of ODS, ODIOUS. And no, I'm not joking. I mean, this has engendered a huge amount of public comment and outrage within the HPOZs and in the wider historic preservation community. Steve, did you want to tell them about today's meeting? Because I think you're the person most knowledgeable of that.
Sure, but yeah, sure. So the communities that have been very, very vocal about this are principally the Wilshire Corridor and the Carthays. And they've essentially been pounding OHR, the Office of Historic Resources, for quite some time about these new standards. So there was a meeting today with Ken Bernstein and other members of his office at Office of Historic Resources and a number of community people. I was a last minute suggestion to attend. As Laura said, it's engendered a tremendous outpouring. And the objective design standards are a result of recent state laws within the last 10 years that have essentially taken the flexibility out of public policy when it comes to housing. And typically, having been part of the public policy world for many decades, a good public policy approach is to try to make things as flexible as possible to allow for creative solutions to difficult problems. But the state, through our Assembly and State Senate, has decided that housing is a difficult problem that doesn't need any flexibility. It needs really refined and defined standards to determine for developers how and where they can build housing. And as a result of that, almost all of the historic preservation overlay zone plans have been written in a subjective rather than objective way, meaning the plan is filled with suggestions like you should do this, or you may not do that, or you should discuss this, etc. Whereas the state government has decided that in order to have such restrictions on new housing and development, one must have objective standards such as this is required, you must, etc. And so this has pushed the Office of Historic Resources after quite a number of new housing projects in the last couple of years. that have been ministerially approved because of these new state laws within HPOZs. And Jefferson Park has been subject to 2 or 3 of them recently that have been particularly outrageous. One, a 6-story cube right in the middle of the HPOZ. So OHR has decided that it's time, after after promising the community for a number of years, to create objective design standards. So they created a draft. They've had a number of public meetings, and the deadline for comments on the draft was last week. It was revealed, so I had submitted a Public Records Act request for all of the responses that the city has received regarding this request for comment, not thinking the number of responses would be as great as they are. So today, during this meeting this morning, Ken Bernstein revealed that there were more than 1,000 responses regarding this draft plan, of which all of them were negative. And some of them very intensely negative. And I have to say that the one from Jefferson Park United was pretty negative. And he said a couple things. Not only—
Well, Steve, I'm going to interrupt you for 1 minute, because the one from Larchmont, this is Laura speaking, yours was not negative. If you had read the letter from Larchmont that he sent out to a lot of people and basically accusing the planning department folks of drinking, you know, LSD Kool-Aid.
we might have had better
Someone
standards
so far.
if they had done that. But anyway, so yeah, some were probably more negative than others and more polite than others. So Ken said that there were more than 1,000 comments in total in opposition, expressing serious concerns. And so this has resulted in OHR reconsidering what they previously distributed as a draft, and they intend to make serious revisions and to make those, to address these concerns, and to make those revisions available for public comment in early or mid-September. So they hope to have a second draft released by then for public comment. And he said 2 things, and he said, I want to make 2 points about this. One is, I was pained that the reaction was overwhelmingly negative, which means that he was caught by surprise. Yet, number 2, he was gratified by the amount of response and investment that people in Los Angeles have in historic preservation. So it was a good and bad review by Ken. But I think the fact that he was surprised by the negative reaction is indicative of the type of community outreach that OHR has done, which is, it's been a kind of checking of a box. We know we have to do public outreach, so we'll check a box. They really weren't listening to what people were telling them during the public outreach. From the very first public outreach event to the last, people were telling them the same things that are in these letters and that he was told today that seemed to be news to him and his staff. So that's a little bit alarming, but so it was an opportunity for members from these communities, including me, and Gene Frost was there from Waha, who I think was also a last-minute addition, to talk about elements of the draft standards that really need to be addressed. And one of the things that is omitted from the draft standards that will impact everybody in West Adams is they didn't address height of new buildings. And that's because they believe they can't. But after much discussion, I think OHR agreed that there are ways to address height that would not be inconsistent with the new state laws. So that's my long-winded summary of what was a 2-hour meeting this morning.
And so this is Laura speaking again. So UNNC has its own long-winded adventure with this initiative. I had the opportunity to hear of it all the way back in November, when it was not really publicly known that they were doing this. They did a little test run, it was semi-publicly known. They did a test run presentation at the University Park HPOZ. And that was because one of the people writing the standards is also the planner for that HPOZ. So they kind of did a, you know, what do you guys think kind of test run. but I had seen the agenda. So I started asking them about it, and it turned out that it was why they're doing this and doing it now is that they were able to get a grant from the Southern California Association of Governments. And then I said, so can we have a copy? And they said, no. So I had done this is again, me personally, I had done a public records request from SCAG, Southern California Association of Governments. So we had a bunch of information in mid-December. UNNC had written a letter to planning, to Ken Bernstein and the two staff members who were writing this, asking, for a couple of things. And one was greater transparency and actual real public outreach, and that they be sure not to create really generic one-size-fits-all standards, since HPO, historic districts in general and HPOZs, the 35 or 36 HPOZs are very distinct from each other. And there's some that are really very distinct. And what our letter pointed out was there's an HPOZ in the valley called Stonehurst, and all of the little bungalow houses are made out of river rock. And there's another HPOZ in the valley and one in Mar Vista, that both of those are based in mid-century modern, architecture. And that even within West Adams, we have a variety of HPOZs. Some are single family, some are multifamily. And so you really need to go back into the individual preservation plans and make them objective, rather than attempting to, I see your hand, but rather than attempting to make a one-size-fits-all. So that was one of our other things. And we asked them not to orphan the other historic districts. So they keep saying it can only, SCAG says can only be HPOZs, but this city has National Register districts, California Register districts, historic districts that were basically a consent districts between the Community Redevelopment Agency and the State Office of Historic Preservation. One example would be the south side of West Adams Heights, the area between Adams and the 10 freeway is a consent National Register district. And then we have the rest of UNNC is covered by character residential overlay districts in the CPIO. And they all, including our character residential districts, are mandated to use this federal Secretary of Interior standards for review. So if you don't have an ODS that can be applied to all of that, then you've got orphaned districts because the federal standards are not objective. So now you have nothing at all to measure against in those districts. So that was our first letter. It was sent in December. There were other things in it, and we got zero response, no response, none whatsoever. Now, early February, we sent a second letter saying you didn't reply to our first letter. We have now seen more documentation. We have some more questions. We didn't get a response to that one either. So what we are doing tonight is a third letter. It is past the official comment period, but my understanding is several neighborhood councils are going to be coming in late because we just have our own, public meeting kind of bureaucracy. The Greater Wilshire Neighborhood Council is meeting on the 12th of August. UNNC meets tomorrow night. I think the neighborhood councils that represent Carthay may also be meeting. I'm not sure of that, but in other words, the neighborhood councils are still trickling in with comment letters. So I posted a comment letter in our packet, and I will share it on the screen momentarily. But the other thing that was of interest is there were several, I did the one public records request, but there were other people who did other public records requests. And one of the documents that was released to the person who did the public records request was a long memorandum from the historic consulting firm that has been hired to do work with a city. And and it was a memorandum about what, you know, their concepts and what they thought was gonna have to happen, including they think the citywide cultural heritage ordinance would have to be amended. Anyway, somebody ended up, after that release of that document, sent it to quite a few other neighborhood organizations. And a lot of the letters are commenting how angry, letter writers are commenting that they were angry that they didn't have enough time to review that memorandum, because it was significant. There was significant information in it, because it wasn't released until, you know, the last few days before the deadline. And one of the things I put in the UNNC letter was that was interesting, but in fact, it never was released. And it was not made into a public record. It was simply distributed by advocates to other organizations. So that's just crazy that you're paying, using public funds to pay a consultant, shouldn't be keeping things secret. Chris, you had a comment.
You may have already answered. My concern was several of our HPOZs within UNNC never wrote specific plans, and so the default is to the federal preservation standards that includes Western Heights and Arbor Heights, and it may include others.
Correct.
And so my concern was to what degree is the objective subjectivity balanced within the federal preservation standards? Because
that's a good question. My understanding from the discussion today, if you are an HPOZ, it applies.
Yes, but the federal standards are not objective. So the
Yes.
state overcome, I mean,
Yeah,
they are more flexible than the preservation plans.
Right, but the ODS will apply to any HPOZ.
Right, but I'm gonna play, Laura
do the
speaking.
federal standards supersede state is my question.
Laura
No.
answered, no, they do not.
Okay.
It's the other way around. So,
Yeah.
but here's the bigger thing. And then we'll get to our letter. Along these many discussions and email conversations and everything, somebody pointed out, and I kind of both love and hate to say this, that with AI now, the actual act of going into 36 or 35, whichever there are, preservation plans, no matter how generic or non-generic. So you've got 8 preservation plans that are absolutely handwritten, years of work to develop, craft very neighborhood specific HPOZ preservation plans. That'd be Angelino Heights, University Park, and 6 others that were early HPOZs. Then the next 16 HPOZs have the one, what you are talking about, Chris. Well, they're not all default. They although they were the 16 other, at that time, other HPOZs. At the time, there were 8 plus 16. And so those 16 HPOZs were given a template. Some of them took the template and made them more specific to their HPOZs, and others just let them be adopted. But they're still flexible. And then after that, the remaining HPOZs are a little more, they have a little more personal attention. So Jefferson Park was then the next HPOZ preservation plan adopted after the 16. And we did sit and write it, and we use the template, but it's very specific to Jefferson Park, and most of the other newer ones are specific. Anyway, it wouldn't be hard for an AI program, given the right keywords, don't ask me what they might be, I don't know how to use AI, but to go through and suggest how to make changes in each of those preservation plans to make them objective. Because a lot of the problem is simply that they don't use the word shall, they use the word should or may. And in other cases, they'll say prevailing setback, but they don't define what that means. The ODS could define what that means, and then you just add that sentence to a preservation plan. So in other words, it shouldn't be as hard as they're making it out to be to make the preservation plans objective. They've instead they meaning planning staff has instead repeatedly told many different HPOZ boards, and I've been at some of these meetings, that there's never more than 12 objective standards in any existing preservation plan, and that's not true. Oh, don't, we're being recorded. We're live on YouTube. It's a lie. Yeah. I mean, some may have maybe not more than 25, but for example, when I look at Jefferson Park or when I look at University Park's preservation plans, they are quite objective in many ways. It's just that some of the words, they don't say shall. You know, you should use the prevailing setback, and that's not what state law considers objective. Anyway, so I don't know if one of the things UNNC wants to suggest is don't use this effort to then forget about making the preservation plan subjective. Probably we want to say this is the first step, and you should immediately engage your individual boards to work on their preservation plans to make them objective. Okay, so do you want me to go through the draft letter? What do we want to do? Steve, I'm going to bow to you.
You want us to vote on the draft letter, right?
Yes, right. So we should at least go through the motions of going through it, my opinion.
It would help if we all.
How
read it.
long is the current draft?
5 pages. Thank you. So I'm going to share it on the screen. The half of the first page is just people it's addressed to, though. So 4.5 pages. Says, can you guys see it? And is it readable?
Yes.
Yes to it's readable.
Yes, we can see it. Yes, it's readable.
Okay, so all I have to do is figure out how I'm scrolling. That ain't it. Okay, having trouble. Hang on. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to kind of just summarize each paragraph. So first paragraph is this letter is a follow-up to the first 2 letters, which you've not responded to. Not nice. You should have at least said we received the letter. More importantly, our initial concerns remain in place, and we have some new concerns. Third paragraph, UNNC is, always has been, concerned about the sense of place we can see every day in the neighborhoods that comprise UNNC. Each of the neighborhoods are designated either as HPOZs or as character residential overlay districts. They are filled with period architecture, palpable historic identity, each unique and distinctive, yet all imbued with a feeling that comes from standing for more than a century, and a similar feel in terms of setbacks, massing height, and the essential rhythm that together establish the character of a neighborhood. The draft objective design
Laura?
standard. Yeah.
Just in that paragraph, since you're saying who the UNNC is, in one of the 2 previous letters, it includes a statement about how many HPOZs are in the UNNC boundary and how many are in CD10, because it's quite a number. And I would suggest that you include that in this paragraph to give them context of how important UNNC is in terms of HPOZs.
Okay, I'm getting a pen, sorry. That's a good idea. It's gonna make the letter so much less pretty.
We're not worried about.
I know. The spacing is so good right now.
Well, we could draw some powers in the margins.
It would be, no, that won't help. What would help if I had a pen, excuse me.
You need a pen? Use mine.
All right, I'll use Chris's pen.
Have mine, I'll figure it out now.
Okay, because it makes no sense for me to make the change on this one because it's not on any. Yeah, I'm just doing it on paper.
Okay, so I think it's in the December letter where it's
Probably.
it indicates the number of HPOZs in UNNC boundary and then the number of HPOZs within CD10. And it also gives a percentage of the total of HPOZs that are in CD10. And I think that's an important context here.
Okay.
It lends a certain amount of authority.
Yes, it does. I'm just saying we'll be less pretty, but that's okay. Because this is not about pretty. Anyway, and I will also add clearly, because we've been knee deep in all of this, a feel in terms of setbacks, massing height, essential rhythm, none of that is objective. And I don't know that we have to acknowledge that in the letter, but just so we have clarity, we know what we're talking about, but a developer might not. Anyway, the draft objective design standards do not protect any of this. Rather, next page, if it were adopted, would likely disrupt the character of many of our streets and neighborhoods, streetscapes and neighborhoods. It would establish principles that are really very different than existing planning standards and also Secretary of Interior standards. And I didn't really explain that, but these ODS feel like they were written by people who do not understand actual zoning. Yeah, I mean, it's written by people who have a preservation degree, and they have a planning degree with a focus on historic preservation, but they're not knee deep into the
nuts and bolts of zoning.
Nuts and bolts and wonky details of zoning, it seems. So
Hand up.
Laura, I haven't had a chance to read the whole letter, but I also think it's important to have some statement about the objective, because it is objective, economic engine that comes to the city because of our historic preserved neighborhoods. There, in terms of film permitting to recreate locations of another time in another place. I mean, every one-day commercial puts $350,000 back into the local economy, much less film. So we have a true economic objective value beyond the aesthetic and the historic. And I think it's important to communicate that to the powers that be.
okay, so Laura speaking again. So we are being transcribed. Thank goodness, because I will capture all of that. Can we go through the letter first?
Yeah.
And deal with what's in it?
Okay, fair enough.
And then we can deal with what we should add to it, because that would be an excellent thing toward the end.
Yeah.
To add to it. I mean, why is this, in summary, why is this important? And that's one of the things that would be important. Okay. Anyway, we are at the draft ODS lacks clarity by defining infill, the word infill, in a very broad way that might or might not include additions, including major additions to existing historic structures. It also defines it in a way that does not align with state law for urban infill. I'll also explain that, which is an urban infill project is always on a vacant lot. And yet the ODS doesn't seem to differentiate much between vacant lots and lots where you're putting in something.
Structures.
Well, where there's already an existing structure, and then sometimes the existing structure is a non-contributor, and sometimes the existing structure is a fancy schmancy contributor, and it's not really, it's using the word interchangeably. And it doesn't mean they shouldn't have standards for all those situations, but it's using the word in a way that's not, well, no, that's not used. That's not what infill, it's not what infill is. Urban infill is on vacant lots. It would also override existing objective standards to the specific plans, CPAOs, and some preservation plans, and it doesn't give a reason why it would do that. It shouldn't be overriding other objective standards. And it contemplates, it seemingly overrides existing zoning, which is different than standards, and it contemplates changes to this citywide ordinance, which I don't think anyone wants to open that door at all. So we want them to consider those comments that other people made and we made seriously, carefully. And I think I was supposed to say that, missed a paragraph. There was an overwhelming response. Steve, should I say it was up here received more than 1,000 comments? Is UNNC supposed to know that? Can UNNC know that?
It was reported in a public meeting by Steve Peck.
Well, it was reported in a private meeting. That's one of the reasons this whole process has been a problem. He was,
I don't think anyone said that the information provided in this meeting was confidential.
right, okay, thank you. But again, you know, most of these meetings have not been public. All right. And then UNNC has to acknowledge that we understand that there's new housing laws, you know, et cetera, et cetera. But, whoops. I have seen now the draft, the motion that the Greater Wilshire Neighborhood Council Planning Committee has adopted, but they're not going to vote on this officially until August 12th, but they've published a draft. And I think this paragraph is good because it does, there's new state mandates that actually contain language that protect historic structures, not destroy them. And Greater Wilshire is saying that the ODS should not be going about dismantling the protections for these houses. So that's in the letter as a direct quote. I just have to figure out how to really present it because it's not adopted by the whole neighborhood council. We'll be in before they have their meeting. Okay, so UNNC asks that OHR and the planning department not utilize objective design standards initiative to accomplish any goal other than updating project reviews to be objective. So I'm going to turn to Steve. Do you think that's an appropriate ask?
I'm not sure what it means when you say other than updating project reviews.
Well, it means they're seemingly using the ODS to declare more projects ministerial.
They are.
To streamline it. And that wasn't, we could be more specific because that's not the goal of that may be the underlying goal, but
it's the driver. It's not the goal.
Right. I mean, the reason to have objective design standards is to comply with the state legislature's mandate that reviews.
Part of that mandate is to make some of this process ministerial.
I understand, but not all of it is ministerial. It still will depend on the project. But
yes, and they agree with that.
I understand. What I'm asking you all, is it okay for us to say, don't use this initiative as a tool to accomplish other housing goals? Just use the creation of the ODS to comply with a mandate to have an ODS.
Right, but they've never said other.
I think we would be a little, short range to assume that other housing goals are not working in parallel. And rather than to not acknowledge them, I think maybe it's more important to focus on the fact that the ODS initiatives and the objective standards, one of the reasons to have objective standards is it should be easier for developers from day one to know what bars they have to meet, and that builds in clarity and focus that should make the process of design and permitting more straightforward. There's not going to be blindsided because it's all there, it's objective. If they come in the door with documents that match those objective standards, it should streamline and accelerate the development of housing that meets those standards within historic and even non-historic areas. So I don't know that by having these objective standards, we are necessarily not interested in achieving those goals of efficiency, transparency, and hopefully cost reduction because there's less delays, because everyone knows when they walk in the door, they know what the standards are before they even start a project. So
I think that's very well put, Chris.
Okay,
and I think
I want to say for the AI
and that is the intent. However, I think one of the components I would suggest adding to your comment is that it should all be within the goal of supporting historic preservation.
because that's the purpose of NHPOC, yes.
Exactly. We're all for streamlining and all of that. And in fact, baked into all of this is if you follow exactly what the ODS says, you'll get that streamlined process. If you don't want to follow it, then then it goes back to the regular HPOZ process. But it all has to be, yes, we all want to streamline this and make it easier, with the ultimate goal of making it easier to build housing that's respectful of historic preservation goals.
Yep.
Okay,
It's within the context of each HPOZ.
And maybe there's even numbers where we can document how many ADUs have been added within our HPOZs. We're not anti-housing, but because the lots are bigger and we've actually been kind of a little oven of new housing. And because of the number of of ADUs that have been built within HPOZs, it's not, it's not a NIMBYism. It's like, we want consistency, we want transparency, but it has to support the purpose of the historic district, which is to preserve the historic fabric.
right.
Exactly.
Okay, this is Laura speaking again. So I realize why I never get meetings that last a short time, because I'm not really good at being the parliamentary authority to say, we're looking at the letter as it exists, and then we're going to talk about what to add to it, because I always let people just talk. So
My bad.
no, it's not your bad, it's
The
my
problem
bad.
is, if we wait till the end, we often forget what we were thinking.
Well, that's true, and Chris lent me her pen, so I'm not sure. She always will. So I'm not sure she has a pen to jot down her thoughts.
I've got her.
Okay, so here's the thing. I'm going back to the sentence I was actually asking about. It does seem clear to me, and I'm being cynical, this is Laura speaking, that one of the things they were utilizing the ODS for was to remove more cases from the HPOZ boards and delegating more of those cases to staff. And they were using this as an excuse to do the thing they've been wanting to do a long time, which is reducing the number of cases, therefore reducing the number of board meetings that the HPOZ boards conduct. And that's what I mean. Maybe I should just say it that way. That's what I mean by don't use the ODS as a tool to accomplish a different goal.
Right, you're not
I think we're specific.
Yeah.
Just
To
say.
sideline the HPRZ boards.
Do not use this to sideline the HBO boards, which is a well-vetted process with a lot of investor energy that's worked successfully for the city up to now.
Okay.
As my
All right.
sixth grade teacher told me, say what you mean and mean what you say.
Well, yes, but sometimes if you're just too cynical, they're not gonna like you anymore, and then they won't read your next letter.
Don't be cynical, but be forthright.
I am, well, okay, all right. So we'll figure something else out for that. Okay, so background. This is going back to what we had asked for initially, so I don't think we really have to go through it, because I'm just repeating what's in the other letters. We asked that they do robust outreach efforts. They did not. Again, for those new to this conversation, it was much more insidery. They did tell, they did have handpicked people at focus group. They had the people who opted to attend the preservation conference. That's, preservation advocates around the city. They got a preview of it, but they didn't do more general public outreach. And then, like I said, meet with neighborhood councils. They did not do that. Don't prepare objective design review standards that are cookie cutter. Unfortunately, they did prepare design standards that are cookie cutter. Share the documents with the public. They did not, though we've pretty much gotten them all, but only because we had to.
Freedom of information request.
We did do freedom, and that's what I'm saying.
That's hardly sharing. That's clawing out.
Right, no, I understand. They did not share documents.
Yes.
The broad royal, we found them. Create standards that can also be applied in all those other districts. These are all, again, the prior bullet points. And eliminate the confusion as to where and when these infill housing ODS standards apply. And it was very confusing and all the initial FAQs and documents, it was all over the place. They've never updated the FAQ. They've never updated the summary, online. So for somebody who's just now entering the fray, they still wouldn't know where this all applies. Now we think it applies to everything, every little thing that could possibly be considered in an HVOZ except a 100% commercial building. But they haven't changed the preamble to actually just say those words out loud. Speaking of, say what you mean. So additional concerns, and these are not in any order, these are just as I kind of thought of them. A lot of the objections that are coming out of the greater Wilshire area are in single family zoned HPOZs. We have a different situation, broadly speaking, in West Adams. We really have a different situation. Here in UNNC section, we have Western Heights is primarily single family zone, not completely, but most of the other HPOZs, with the exception of Lafayette Square, have multifamily. And this doesn't really seem to, well, it doesn't really seem to address how you retain your character fourplexes and prevent them from being demolished to create a bigger infill project, which is not exactly an infill project because it's not a vacant lot until you've demolished the character building. So they're not really, they don't seem to differentiate in the ODS with the inside the neighborhoods, the small 100-year-old bungalow courts and those. They also did not seem to consider that purely residential designs are probably not appropriate on commercial corridors. Jefferson Park Preservation Plan has language on this. I'm not looking at it right now, but for us at UNNC, Pico, Washington, and Jefferson Boulevards all are pretty much streetcar commercial. So to insert something that has a traditional, I don't know, East Coast colonial, could be pretty, could be a really pretty multifamily home in a different HPOZ that would look silly on a commercial corridor with streetcar commercial, but might not look silly on a Western Avenue, which has so many different designs. Maybe Monticello wouldn't look so good there either, but Spanish style looks really good in a big multifamily form, but it still wouldn't look good at Jefferson and Fifth Avenue.
In the commentary that I made to this thing,
Demetrius speaking,
I definitely mentioned that any infill should be compatible with things on either side,
right?
And the streetscape in general, rather than just be something that sort of fits
Right.
according to their limited amount of design criteria.
Right.
And the other thing was height.
But Laura speaking again. So one of our happy poster childs of projects that we like is the Thomas Saffer and Associates project at Jefferson and Fourth Avenue. We also like the new one that's at Washington and Fourth Avenue, but the one at Jefferson, the original two designs came in really odd. One was sort of like a Disneyland monorail space futuristic design. And the other was a colonial revival Georgian design. And neither one met the Jefferson Park Preservation Plan, and they were both rejected. So that's really what this paragraph addresses.
And
then
what came out of that process was a development that has been very solidly
Sure.
embraced by the community.
and it's streetcar commercial.
Streetcar in
ish.
both locations.
Right.
It's added rather than diminished
Right.
the surrounding area.
Right. And part of this is about making sure your commercial corridors remain pedestrian friendly, which, there's a definition to that. They don't address pedestrian friendliness in the ODS, and they really should. In fact, they had a list of elements that could be included in a building that's designed as a mixed use, but there was like 8 or 10 elements, and they said, just pick 2 of them. And it's like, well, no. I mean, pick as many, not just pick, do as many as feasible. 2 is not enough, because 1 needs to be the band, and then what's the other one? So that seems silly. So anyway, because it's like they didn't understand what a pedestrian friendly project would look like. It should not at all conflict with the Secretary of Interior standards. So this is one of the big objections coming out of the greater Wilshire neighborhood area, HPOZ neighborhoods, that they all pointing out that the current draft allows buildings in the rear, so that, you know, new buildings in the rear of existing, to be taller and more massive than the original historic structure. The Secretary of Interior standards absolutely say no, they need to be subservient is not the right word. There's a better word. Right now I have subservient.
Compatible and in scale.
No, they're supposed to be less than.
Less than, okay,
So subservient is a right word, but it's just not the word.
they used.
Well, it's not the word that Secretary of Interior standards uses. And okay, and then height. As Steve mentioned, they are not addressing height. We've had some discussions, and it seems that the right answer to me, but there may be disagreement about this as well, is that the ODS should be referencing the base height. And the base height should be determined by the existing zoning, and which would include what's called a height district. So you can see on when you look up your own property or anybody else's on ZMIS, it gives you the zone first, which in my case would be RD2, and then there'll be a hyphen, and then the next thing will be something like 1 VL, which is 45 feet, or 1 XL. Most HPOZs are those 2, 1 XL more often, which is 30 feet. It could be, if it's on Western or Crenshaw, it's going to be 2D, which would be unlimited height for most projects. So it's already in the zoning string that the parcel would have. And that should be the base, because that's the base that the city planning uses to determine how much taller can you get if you're doing a density bonus project, and you know, so that should be stated quite clearly in the ODS. That's not necessarily going to make folks in Jefferson Park happy, because that still could result in a 5 or 6 story building on Jefferson Boulevard.
We get it, but we also understand it's a losing battle, but the win here is to get the underlying zoning enshrined as an objective design standard.
Correct. And they should never, ever be, this again, my paragraph, the ODS should never be inconsistent with the existing specific plans and CPAOs, which already have objective design standards. You know, they are writing that the ODS would supersede them. But we, and not just we, UNNC, all of South LA, all of Hollywood, all of Southeast LA, all of West Adams, Baldwin Hills, Leimert, maybe other places, already have in place on their commercial corridors the CPIOs, which have very, very specific and objective design standards. And to say that, oh, you're jumping in with a citywide thing that's going to supersede that is crazy. It should be compatible with. They should read them. I mean, bottom line.
Incorporate.
Well, read them and see what they say, because if they actually read them, they might just pick up the language, because the language is good. I mean, these CPIOs talk about, if you happen to have a 250-foot frontage, how do you deal with 250 feet? Because you don't want to have one big blank wall. So they've got very good language addressing the same things that the ODS is addressing. So they're just walking in, starting over and saying, whatever we finish with is going to supersede. And that makes no sense at all. No. And the Conservancy is not really happy with this discussion. I don't know why exactly, but they say it only applies to 5 or 6 or 7 HVOZs. It's like, okay, but it happens to apply to 3 or 4 of ours. So, you know, that's
how it's getting going.
Chris Carlson speaking, when you say the Conservancy,
they don't want to focus. They're not wishing to engage in this part of the discussion because it doesn't apply to most I don't know that that's a correct statement. They think it does not apply to most HVOZs.
Well,
that most HVOZs do not include commercial corridors.
I think they should be enlightened because enough do, and if you're really conserving, you should have a broad vision, not a tunnel vision.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't want to drag them. I mean, I'm just saying, I agree with you, and also I have this feeling that Highland Park, I mean, in other words, I just haven't looked at all the other HVOZs.
Yeah.
You know, they thought Pico Union, but it turns out Pico Union pretty much does not have commercial strips. Like the way, just the way the boundaries were drawn, they excluded the commercial. Western Heights excluded.
No,
the
we
commercial.
were told we could not.
I understand.
We tried like heck to include.
But there's a CPIO in place, and that's gonna do the same protections, yeah.
Yep.
So we think, okay. Now. The historic consultant memo. They anticipated that the ordinance would need to be amended to take away individual HPOZ boards review activities. We don't, you know, I don't know, do we think it's terribly wrong? That's what I wrote. This was, you can tell, this was at 5 o'clock. It was like, oh my God, I have to finish this. So that this whole paragraph might not be well written. But the thing is, HPOZ boards, generally speaking, they review for conforming work on buildings. Those would not be under the ODS anyway. That where they have full decision making already would not be covered by objective design standards because it's not infill construction. It's small additions.
Yep.
Or alterations. So what we're really talking about here for the ODS are what they call certificate cases, where the board holds a public hearing. The public neighbors can come to that, testify. The board makes a decision that is a recommendation to the director of planning. So if they misapply the objective design standards in making their recommendation, the planning department still has the ability to say, oh, no, you did it wrong. Here's our decision. But if they trained the boards, all of them, in the same way that presumably they're going to have training for HPOZ staff and as to how to use the ODS, I think the boards probably will have a good chance of making the right decision. Anyway, this is obviously me inserting my opinion, but that's what that last paragraph is. I can take the letter down now. Would that help? I see Steve has his hand.
No.
Don't take the letter
No,
down.
don't take it
Steve.
down.
All right.
So regarding this last paragraph, I just want to play devil's advocate here for a second, Laura, and to use as my foundation Chris's earlier comment about the importance of ODS in making the process easier, streamlining it, which is part of the intent. So if you have an objective design standard and as a developer, you comply with it, right? You say, yes, this is what I'm going to do. Here's my plan. It does that. Then what's the purpose of having a board meeting?
Well, you would have to change the ordinance. It's not just a board meeting.
No, I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
So taking out the change in the ordinance, my question is still important to answer, which is if I'm checking the right boxes and it complies with everything that has been agreed upon should be an objective design standard, then what's the purpose of the board meeting? To review the check boxes?
Well, here's the question I would throw back at you. Because we review these projects too. The neighborhood council reviews, most of these big projects that are on the corridors, because we're not really talking about a little duplex inside, being a big certificate case, right? What we find is that in the end, they might be asking for relief from 10 or 15 different normal requirements. So you could check all the boxes, but it's still not gonna, those boxes are not gonna include, are you removing a mature tree to have your driveway? Or is your passageway only 4 feet wide? How are you gonna fight a fire? So when this is open to the public and more than one set of eyes is looking at the plans, they're going to review it for everything, because both those things that I said would be incentives or waivers, that they're asking for relief from not removing the tree, or relief from the required width of a passage for firefighters.
I think, for example, the trees are going to be added. That was discussed today, and that was part of my letter, that the trees need to be protected. So, but if the trees are protected and they are actually certifying in writing through the actual design plan that they submit that it meets all the requirements, I'm still not getting why a HPOZ board review may be required. I understand why a planning and zoning committee review may be important, not why an HPOZ board meeting would be required.
Okay, so my opinion is as follows. One, we should not be writing anything that requires that the cultural heritage ordinance be open up for amendment, because once that process happens, there are many development entities that will say, well, as long as you're in the process of revising this ordinance, why don't you also do this and this and this and this? So if the only thing is that they want to change the requirements for how boards handle certificate cases, I don't think you need to change the ordinance for that, because some of these projects are automatically streamlined and they will not be going to the board anyway, not because the planning department thinks the board members aren't smart enough to apply objective design standards, but because they're in a category of housing development that is streamlined and becomes ministerial and has a 30 or 60-day timeline. So the state legislation didn't say all projects are now ministerial. They just said all projects need to be reviewed objectively. Some projects are also ministerial. So anything that's ministerial, literally ministerial, wouldn't be going to the board. I'm saying if it's still a certificate case, it should not be delegated to staff. So maybe that needs to be a more finesse here. It may be by 5 years from now, there will no longer be certificate cases, but even in that instance, it doesn't require changing the ordinance, because there could come a time when the voters have tossed all the current legislators out and the new batch reverses some of these decisions. So you wouldn't want the ordinance to be going back and forth anyway.
Right. So yeah, maybe it's important to capture some of that. Thank you.
Right, but I will admit that since I didn't start writing that paragraph to about 2 minutes to 5, that it may not be particularly a good paragraph.
I think the intent is sound.
I get your gist, and I think the intent sound. I agree. I agree with you.
Okay.
And Laura.
All right. Okay, this said, do we want to keep the letter up on the screen, or do we want to talk about things that aren't there without the letter being in front of us? Because at the moment for us in the room, we're only seeing 3 people, and I think there's more than that in the room.
I don't need to see the letter.
I don't need to see the letter either.
it's much nicer to have a conversation with people who are present.
But-
There we go, look, there they are, more people.
I think the letter is strong. I mean, there are places where you can tighten it up and suggestions that were made tonight. I think with those revisions, you'll have a good letter to go tomorrow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
but-
agree.
But are we missing, well, I mean, you guys, the way I wrote it at the last minute, I cannot be perfect.
I think the point of the economic impact of
Yes, to
HPOCs
the
is
city.
important to the city.
And to the state, the state's investing hundreds of millions of dollars to support its in-state film industry. And if you decimate many of the premier locations to
Right.
support that industry, you're just shooting yourself in the foot. That's crazy.
Well, it is true, because a lot of times, sometimes a film location is only for, Laura speaking, only the interior of a property, or maybe its front porch. Other times, they want the car to drive down the street.
They want a street.
Yep.
Yes, and frankly, they don't want any palm trees. I mean, there's a lot of other things they don't want, but what they really don't want is a zero setback
Yep.
modern block, cookie cutter, block,
I
rectangle,
think that's a
bright
point.
light.
That's a point well taken. I'll just add one more thing, which is there are a lot of details in the ODS that one could comment on.
Yes,
I don't think you have the time to be able to do that before tomorrow.
right, and not only that, I think, oh, bye, Greg.
So I think you have a good, strong letter, and,
Let's
with
talk.
suggestions that were made tonight, you should move it forward.
Greg wants to say, I think, a goodbye.
But I'm glad to be here. I'll plan on being here in 2 weeks. I wasn't quite sure how late the meeting went, so I need to leave a little early tonight.
That's
But
all
Laura,
right.
I gave you my digits and my phone number and my email, so hopefully we can contact in the next week or so. I'd like that.
Okay, and I do believe I believe I have your email, but I know I don't, well, now I do have your phone number. Also, for Greg, I know you had mentioned to David that you wanted to help Western get improved. And we have an economic development committee as well. I will email you that information because they're talking about it.
And Laura, I mean, what I'd like to do, maybe you can chat with me or give me a crash course in all, in all
Yeah,
the.
all the wonky stuff.
Because what you guys are doing is great, and I'm going like, okay, but so I'm spending time online just trying to understand all the acronyms and all that kind of stuff. But hey, I'm a quick learner, or I used to be, so I think it's great. I look forward to getting more involved, wherever it makes sense for me to be involved. That'd be wonderful,
Perfect.
Laura, and thank you, everyone. I really appreciate this.
Okay, so I'll shoot you an email.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
So I'm going to make a motion, which is that with the suggestions made tonight and the tightening that you've already said you wanted to do, that the letter be revised and presented tomorrow to the board with the full endorsement of the committee.
Okay, I second.
Oh, anything? All right.
We all agree.
All in favor? Yes.
We're glad you're doing it.
Yes,
Oh.
thank you.
It's a great letter.
And I would just like to comment to others who emphasize it. It is a really good letter, and given the timeframes, I want to commend Laura for being able to bring it together and bring such a good, because it was a heavy lift and there wasn't a lot of time, and I
You did a
think
great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
that wonkiness comes into play.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So Steve, when do you have a sense of when they're gonna send out some revision? I heard when you said that you're gonna be able to comment on it.
So yes, the revisions will be, I think I sent you the timeline on that. The revisions will be sent out beginning to mid-September.
Okay, and
They did not say how fast of a turnaround they want, but they did.
right, but I guess we should plan then that the first Wednesday in October would be when we're sadly trying to finalize another comment letter to take to the October governing board meeting.
Sure.
Because it doesn't sound like that we're gonna have till November.
No, I think it's gonna be a couple
Right.
best.
So hopefully our next letter can be, letter number 4 can be, oh, thank you for listening to the community.
Can you email me a copy of this one or the revised one?
Well, yeah, it's in the, this letter's in the agenda packet,
Okay,
and I could email it.
well, that's fine. I can get it
Yeah,
on the
but you
agenda.
can just down it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't there early,
Yeah.
but it's there now.
Okay.
And the revised one will be in tomorrow night's
I'm gonna
agenda
make
packet
sure that the other board members of the HPOZ get it,
of your age.
well, my HPOZ get it, because it was a very lackadaisical, here's this ODS thing, and I'm not sure how many of the other board members of my HPOZ responded to.
Well, normally, HPOZ board members or a board as a whole are not in a position to be responding to something like this, because the general rule of thumb is if it might come to the board for an action, you should not take a pre-action. And you should certainly not discuss it. But this will not be going to the HPOZ boards for action. So I think each and every one of you should,
So yes,
Know that this is,
I circulated my responses to the HPOZ.
well, did you circulate them to us? Because Steve and I are collecting letters.
Okay.
And Waha's collecting letters.
All
I
right.
mean, we're trying to, because there is a public records request for all of the letters and comments, but as it turns out, if there's more than 1,000, it's gonna take a while to fulfill that public records
Okay.
request.
I'm gonna modify that request to ask for unique letters. And comments.
Well, that requires them to look at them.
Well, they have to look at them anyway, and they said they were.
supposed to read them.
No, they'd have to look at them again to comply with your public records request.
Well, hopefully they sorted them.
Unless they digitally separated them into piles.
They should have sorted them. So anyway,
If they're all negative, I think they're all gonna be in the same pile. That's
But, I mean,
some
we
are
separate
for-
them into the unique letters and copy and paste letters, and we don't know. You know, because there may be more than one copy and paste letter, in fact, because, you know, West Adams Heritage sent out a blast with sort of a statement, and that's different than the blast that went out by
Okay.
Larchmont and others. Okay, so let's move on quickly, see if I can find it, to the starter home revitalization. I don't have a lot to do with that. And I know we want to talk about Wilshire Toe as well. So this is another new law, the Starter Home Revitalization Act, that's being met suddenly with it's creating a major problem in the Angelino Heights HPOZ. So the idea of the law seems to be to once again create semi-affordable, you know, small scale residential projects of 10 or fewer units on urban lots that are under 5 acres that are zoned for multifamily use. So it wouldn't be usable in a single family zone. And it mandates a ministerial non-discretionary approval process to cut down on delays. So 60 days to approve. It limits local restrictions. It prohibits excessive setbacks. What the heck is an excessive setback? Or parking mandates. And it prohibits low floor area ratios that would reduce the allowable housing density. That seems like a weird thing, because if you changed it to 10 lots and they're each in effect single families, there's no FAR. Well, that's probably the lot coverage. Anyway, here's what's happened in Angelino Heights. So I'll just leave that up for a minute. What's happened in Angelino Heights, from what I understand, is somebody bought 2 side-by-side parcels. It had been the same ownership. A contributor had burned down or something. probably burned down on one of the two lots. So there's one remaining contributor and a contributing lot that has nothing on it. And the developer, person who bought this, is subdividing, re-subdividing so that it results in 11 lots. One lot being the existing contributor, but it loses
All its
all of its
context.
context, thank you. And then 10 quote starter homes on the 10 other lots.
But I thought the project was capped at 10 or fewer units.
Well, it is, so that's an interesting point. Steve, do you remember, nobody mentioned that, but that is true, it is capped at 10 or
It
fewer.
Objectively states.
It objectively
10 or
says 10 or fewer,
units.
so they probably do have to get rid of one. But were they $1 million each is what they were selling?
They were starting at more than $1 million.
So it doesn't sound like a starter home either. That, I mean, you know, in other words, this would be giving a major gift for something that's not a starter home, which is exactly the same thing we had seen. I'm gonna stop there with small lot subdivisions, which
May I show
also
may
were
I show the
designed to,
illustration?
pardon?
May I show the illustration of what it will look?
Yeah, oh, you need to be, hang on. If you have it, but let me,
I have it up.
okay, I'm just
It
making you a
also
co-host.
seems to lack an objective definition of what a starter home is. Because if existing homes are selling.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, that's interesting. It is 10. There's that front home, looks like other houses in the neighborhood. And 9,
Utterly terrifying.
But it's 11
11
units
total.
total. Their math is off.
well, maybe.
So that's what the original house, I think it's on the left there, looks like. That would be,
It's,
and I don't, I think it's the house that used to be there. I don't think,
they're sort of, it looks like here they're emulating the house that used to be there as the front piece of all this. With
Yeah.
everything else squished in behind.
yep, so they're gonna take over the rear yards.
Yeah, and quasi rebuild, but
And no parking, or is there
zero,
parking?
no parking.
Does that look like that has parking to you?
No sun.
No way.
I mean, there's not even any sunlight. If you're in one of those
Yeah.
No
little units.
parking, no additional infrastructure to support the additional units and people. You have to remember also Angelino Heights is a hillside, so there's no expansion or plan of how they're going to get people out of there in the case of a hillside fire or other disaster. So remember, the whole neighborhood was built with a certain design, an idea of how many houses and how many people. You start cramming all this new stuff in there, that upends the original design of the neighborhood and essentially implodes the infrastructure that's currently in place without any augmentation.
I'd really hate to be down the hill from that too. I'm looking at that thinking, what is the drainage plan? for
Oh,
that?
yeah. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, so I don't know how successful or not successful they are. I mean, they're in the throes of this, so.
Yep.
And there's no real ability, it's ministerial, so there's
Yep.
no ability to.
They're
um,
suing.
Oh, well, there's ability to do that,
It's gonna go to the courts.
yeah. Yeah, so, okay. Let's do follow up to previous cases, and I know what we're talking about is Wilshire Toe.
I have a
Siobhan, you did
short one.
a great job, huh?
I have a short one before we get to Wilshire
Okay.
Toe with me.
Okay,
I don't
sure.
know if you found my email, Laura, but the liquor store case, which
Oh.
went for the ZA, we won.
Yes,
We won,
yes.
which was absolutely tremendous. But here's the problem, and I don't know how to address it, which is the appellant emailed the ZA staff the morning of the hearing and said he wanted to withdraw his appeal. The hearing went forward. The president of the Area Planning Commission repeatedly asked if the appellant was in the audience, on Zoom, or on the phone, and no one seemed to have a clue, which meant that the ZA staff never opened up their same-day correspondence regarding the case, and same-day correspondence is allowed. And the email went out that morning, and the case wasn't heard until after 4:30. I mean, there's something really, really wrong about this, and I don't know how to address it, and I'd like our neighborhood council to try to address this. This is a real problem with staff.
Yeah, Steve, this is Laura. Did the email go to the commission, or did it only go to the planning staffer?
I think the only planning staffer.
Well, he might have been off that day.
No, not I'm talking about the ZA support. Sorry.
No, okay, we went to the area planning commission.
Right.
So the zoning administration staff support person was not the official who was supposed to be receiving communications. It was instead, it was like APC. I mean, there was a specific email to send communications to for same day or any other thing that would go to the commission staff. So it depends who we sent the email to.
It's in the same day folder.
It is now in the same day folder.
It was when I looked it up, it was in the same day folder.
Great. Was it in the same day folder that day?
But it's not, it doesn't matter. It's in the same day folder.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I hear what you're saying. There is a way you can like look in the Google Drive and you can see when it was uploaded. It may or may not have been uploaded same day. But all that said, that was way too late to cancel the hearing.
But they could have informed the commissioners and said the appeal has been withdrawn and we could all go home rather than going through the charade.
Well, that is also true. That is also true. I'm just being a little bit rose-colored glasses because it allowed us to have a bit of a yak about what was the other thing? Oh, about the Murphy. I mean, if we hadn't gone there, we couldn't have chided planning staff about the Murphy drill site. I mean, we had an opportunity to do a secondary thing.
I just think it's really wrong.
I know, it is really wrong, but I would say that if they don't withdraw 21 days, they should not allow a withdrawal after the case has been published.
I'm okay with the fact that they couldn't cancel the hearing. What I'm okay with is going through the charade and the hour and a half of it. The appeal has been withdrawn.
Right.
The president of the Area Planning Commission asking multiple times what the status is and why the appellant isn't even attending.
You know what, Steve? We had an enjoyable drive. We had a conversation with people we've never met before. I'm just saying.
But your point is still well taken.
Your point is well taken, but take the lemonade with it.
Fine, Siobhan, you're wrong. Sorry.
I mean, it was enjoy, anyway. Let's move on to Wilshire Toe. And I didn't put anything on my flash drive. If anybody wants to see images, I can go.
We have.
Well, I know, but Sharif, have you seen these images, Steve? Because I think
I don't have to see pictures, Laura. Every time I drive by, I'm annoyed with the cars on the sidewalk, the cars in the median, trying to make that left turn if I want to go around. I make the turn on Wilton to come around. It's crazy. I mean, it's just really obnoxious.
If you live it, you don't have to see the photo documentation.
Yeah. I live it every day because I have to make that left turn on Wilton Place. And I always, when I see a tow truck right in the middle of the street, I do start like kind of swearing. This is Laura speaking. Instead of remembering that I actually could turn on Cimarron if I was only clever and make the loop the other way, but I always forget that piece of it. But I shouldn't have to. Shouldn't have to. And now, so there's another issue that I'm wondering if Demetrius and Chris have noticed. I had heard that they want that the employees are parking their cars again on 20th Street and in their tow trucks eating lunch. Neither Siobhan nor I have actually seen either one of those, but I don't know what we would know that we're seeing in terms of employee parking. But at least one person has also seen them maybe just queuing up and waiting for a dispatch there. The problem is that those drivers have noticed Siobhan and maybe others taking pictures of them and are starting to also take pictures back, which is kind of scary.
Creepy and weird.
Creepy
It's
and weird.
weird, yeah.
But are you guys willing to engage in creepy and weird?
Oh, yeah. I'm taking pictures and having my picture taken, taking
6
pictures.
p.m. today, I was on the street taking pictures of cars on the sidewalk. I
But
went
that's on Washington.
on Washington. I went and spoke to the guy with the forklift and I pointed out why this was not allowed. And his response to me was, well, everybody breaks the law.
Right, but the reason I'm talking about 20th Street is it's forbidden in the CUP. So if we can get some photos that are obvious on 20th Street in Western Heights of their trucks, because you're never gonna be able to get an employee parking his car. But, you know,
Yeah,
it's just that,
I
it's
haven't
just
seen
that
it for a while.
okay, well, that's the
They're probably,
question.
they're probably in the middle block. I don't go down very often. This to meet you.
You know, it would be the middle block,
Yeah.
it'd be between Morris and Cimarron.
I'll make an effort to.
Yeah,
drive
because
down.
those photos would be, if we had even one photo of that, it'd be necessary. I mean, obviously, I have also seen more on Wilton Place. I've seen them speeding down Wilton
Yep.
Place to a thing. Well, that's also not allowed, but you know, you have to be really prepared to get that photo because it's not the same thing as a car parked.
Yeah.
Because they're parked, you have a moment to get your camera out and take the photo. Siobhan's updated the letter that we had before and added photos, and what she's trying, she could talk herself, what it looks like she's trying to do is connect the conditions to the violations in the letter. Siobhan, why don't you tell them what you're really trying to do instead of me talking for you?
Oh, I mean, that's pretty much it. I'm trying to connect the violations that we have documentation of with the violations in the permit. There are also other things. I mean, their conditional use permit doesn't specifically exclude the parking on sidewalks, but
Well,
That's
yeah.
right.
Federal ADA law does.
Yeah.
some of the violations that we know of are really hard to capture on film. For instance, I know that they're not supposed to be trucking up and down 20th Street. They're supposed to use the major thoroughfares to get in and out. I saw one of them do it not even 3 weeks ago, but could I get my phone out fast enough to capture it? No, which I keep thinking about that going, God dang it. Because every time I'm out there, I look and I wait. And unless I sit there, sit in Jill and Tony's front yard with a lawn chair and a beer, like I'm probably not going to capture it. But I've got quite a bit of evidence, and there are plenty of residents who are willing to speak to their experiences. If they want to put us under oath, I welcome them to do so. But I don't think I don't know that going over there and taking any more pictures is going to be helpful. I think they know we're onto it. And they're trying to, at least with me, they're trying to make me as uncomfortable as possible whenever I'm over there. And my initial thought was, well, okay, they're in violation of their conditional use permit. I'm just documenting it. They know full well what they're doing. Why are they getting on my case about it? But I don't think there's two brain cells to rub together over there that know where their conditional use permit is even stored or what the contents of it is. So anyway, I've gone to I went through the letter. I made the edits that we talked about the last time we talked about this. I think it was the early June meeting, early May or late May, early June.
It was June.
It was June. Okay, so I made those edits to it, made the demands clear, much clearer. So it's a 4-point demand. And if the ZA is not going to enforce their own conditional use permit and the site is clearly in violation, then they need to just revoke it because they're going to keep doing it. that, the conditional use permit has not been a deterrent of any kind. And now that they know that the ZA is just gonna about it, I don't think it's going to continue. Yeah, I don't think it stands any chance of being an effective deterrent. And as Laura correctly pointed out, with all the other pressures on this neighborhood, the community made the decision that remote lot on the corner of Gramercy and Washington did not contribute meaningfully to the neighborhood, and spent and had the CRA spend $4.4 million of taxpayer money to remove it and put a better neighbor in there, which, by the way, was a great idea because they've been a lovely neighbor. But the use is still inconsistent with the neighborhood. It's still incompatible with the area. And they've repeatedly shown that they don't know how to be a good neighbor. So I don't see the reason to belabor the point anymore. Now, we're going to submit this letter, and the ZA is going to hem and they're going to haw, and they're going to say, well, we have to have a hearing. And we're going to be sitting here a year from now, and there's still going to be parking on the sidewalks out there.
Right, well,
One thing.
Demetrius
speaking, Ed Saunders is taken to sitting on his porch on 20th Street.
with the bear.
Really? Sorry. We also
Oh,
make
good.
sure he has his phone. So that he could, I'll ask him to document it. 2, I have been calling in parking violations every time I've gone by.
Oh, well,
And parking violations is sort of weirdly responsive. It takes you 4 hours to get a response from it. But the minute you make the request, they said, we'll send out an officer.
well, this is Laura speaking. They're also, parking enforcement's complicit.
Mhm.
I have seen the parking enforcement vehicles and people sitting there chatting with the tow truck.
Or they just drive right by.
No, but they come because they've towed vehicles.
Yeah, it's part of.
It's part of the
there's a
job.
symbiosis.
They're sitting there parked backwards on Washington on the north side, chit chatting with a tow truck. I mean, the parking enforcement in front of Gramercy Apartments, but in the red. I mean, at least they're in the red, not taking anybody's parking. But while there's flatbed trucks in the middle of the road, and maybe or maybe not other vehicles up on sidewalks, so those people are complicit. They're not the ones who've been called out to do enforcement. So that's another issue. I did lose my train of thought. The ask is to rescind, but first we have to ask for a hearing. There were 2 conditional use permits. One that's still in existence that is for the current office dispatch operation. And that's the main, quote, main lot. So that's probably the one you're looking at. But maybe not. And it was also pretty specific that the vehicles to be stored on that lot were to either be luxury, high money luxury vehicles, or the vehicles used in police investigations. And there were not supposed to be any other vehicles there. What the definition is of a high value luxury vehicle today versus 1984, whenever this conditional use permit was granted, I don't know if they had a definition of how much money. The quote remote lot would be for all the others. And I feel like I've seen, even in the photos, and I've seen just like today, the forklift carrying a wrecked car into that lot.
Yep.
And those cars are not supposed to be in that lot. They're supposed to be in the remote lot. So that should be in the updated conditional use permit that also allowed them to build. At the rear, there's a building that has lifts so they can have more cars. So whatever that's called, where there's stacked parking.
Yeah.
The other conditional use permit was for the original remote lot, which is across the street where Gramercy Housing is. The conditions in that conditional use permit at a minimum should be added now to the original permit, because they were two conditional use permits. So it may be the do not drive on Gramercy, do not drive on Wilton Place was on the north side COP and not on the south side. I don't know, there's maybe some compare contrast, but certainly the whole idea of a conditional use permit one whole idea is to prevent there from being blight and nuisance, to assure that a use is compatible with the neighborhood. Now, we've been reading all of the exact same language for the Murphy drill site. So that's why I'm becoming re-familiarized with what those conditions are for. And the only way to revoke a conditional use permit is for a zoning administrator to make a determination that the use is a nuisance and that there are no conditions that could be added that would prevent it from being a nuisance. So revocation is one thing we should be seeking, but it may not be a useful thing for us to seek as it relates to the offices and dispatch. We should absolutely be seeking that they have a cease and desist right now on the 2 additional lots where they have no permission to be. The zoning doesn't allow them, period. It's just a cease and desist. So just in the last 24 hours in reviewing what Siobhan wrote, and then I thought, well, let me see if anybody did. Oh, well, no, because you wrote me, Demetrius wrote me to say, if you copy me on something about, oh, I don't know. Somebody wrote me and said, are there any complaints to building and safety? Well, it turns out there were. And there's even an order to comply to get the heck out of the remote thing, because there's no permit to be there on the on the new lots, not new, but on the easterly, the expansion lots. But it's already a year old. The complaint was open and the investigation was open in August 2025. The order to comply was written in January of this year. And nothing has happened. So that needs to just go to the city attorney. So that, send it on to the city attorney. And then the real question is, do we go right now to the police commission and ask them to revoke one or both of their tow licenses? They have 2. It may be that the reason that this is so overwhelming is because they're doing 2 police stations. Maybe if they only kept Wilshire and not Olympic, maybe they could operate in such a way that at their original spot, it would not be as overwhelming. I don't know, but I think we should figure out how to go to the police commission, even in public comments. I don't know. We'll write the letter, but
I will write the letter and copy that. And then I have a line to copy them on it to make sure that they understand.
Right. So does anybody else have any other really great ideas of what we should be asking for? I mean, what are we at? Are we asking the city to get them another lot just like the last time? Because they got them a lot at 60th and Western or Gage and Western. I think 60th and Gage are the same street.
Are they using that lot or are they conveniently overusing what they have on Western?
I think they still have their sign up a year ago when this all started, or in whatever, was it 2 years ago it all started? I don't even remember. But in March of 2025, the sign was still up at the lot on Gage by Western. But since it does seem they've totally consolidated, I think they lost the lot. I think that's what had happened. Somehow maybe it wasn't owned by them, it was just a lease that expired. I don't know.
It was more efficient not to pay. It's just
I don't know what happened, but I doubt they still have that lot. That's all I'm trying to say.
I don't think it's the community or UNNC's responsibility to figure out their lot situation. I think what our responsibility is to figure out what's going on at the specific lot and get their permit revoked.
Right, but I think we need to, this is what I'm asking you about, because the last time that was the ask. When I say the last time, whenever, 1984 all the way till 2008 or whenever it was, find them another lot in an industrial zone. That was the ask. And ultimately, the Community Redevelopment Agency found them another lot in an industrial zone. And things were more copacetic for all those years until last year. Yes, Chris?
But it concerns me when the people operating the lot will blithely say, everybody breaks the law. You won't get that. It just shows a lack of even wanting to meet the conditions. And that needs to be made apparent to the city and the police commission, because they shouldn't be doing business with an operation who thinks it's okay to break the law. You know, it's just not okay.
I do realize we do have another ask for sure. We would like an explanation from the planning department as to why they allowed them to withdraw the plan approval case. They just said, okay, fine. And they were asking to legalize the expansion onto these 2 lots. And they just sent a letter withdrawing, and I think we want to ask whoever it was for an actual explanation as to why, with their withdrawal, the zoning administrator didn't just simply initiate their own plan approval case. Teresa.
Well, if I could just comment on that, Laura, I think they withdrew the application because it was going to be too difficult to get approved. And why do I need approval if we could just start doing it and not have to worry about it?
Well, I knew why they got it withdrawn, but I want to know why the planning department allowed it to be withdrawn.
How do you stop them?
Well,
an applicant from, okay, that's too complicated. Let me, the comment I want to make is, should we reach out to CD10 regarding parking enforcement? I know the city is increasing parking fees, all of these fees to get additional revenue. Well, this seems like a great opportunity for them to get some additional fees. So maybe we should, and I don't, as I mentioned to you earlier in the week, Laura, we here, Southwest, we know who the parking sergeant is. So when there's things going on, James can call them and say, hey, we need some parking enforcement. I don't know who it is, neither does he for Olympic, but maybe to build that relationship, or maybe just ask CD10, Danielle, unless Allie, who's ever managing that area, to get some additional
all right.
Whatever from the police department.
Yeah, I did share some of the photos with Andrew Westall and Hakeem. And then they said, oh, we'll get right on it, building and safety. And said, okay, but that's not really why. I mean, I shared it with you because they were so bad, but we're going to write you a letter and ask, give you a list of what we want you to do. Right. And that's what I'm trying to figure out. What is there anything else we want them to do? Do we want them to have, I mean, see, I don't know. They're not going to give tickets to these trucks.
We don't know that. If we have enough people complain, if we go to the police station, we're like, look, have parking enforcement come out. This is really detrimental to our quality of life, and show the pictures and talk about the violations. We are deserving of having the ability to walk down the street without having to go in on Washington, a busy boulevard, with a stroller, and
but we're also deserving, Laura speaking, we're also deserving of getting the parking we wanted on Washington Boulevard. In other words, so much of it is painted red. I will say that these flatbed trucks are in the red and not in the parking spaces. It's the one little blessing. They're not actually taking up much of our parking. However, it looks like they're taking up much of our parking, which doesn't help any business that wants to operate. Although, I mean, it's like none of this is consistent with the mid-city revitalization or whatever it is, corridor community redevelopment plan, which is still in existence on Washington Boulevard, which was supposed to be revitalizing the commercial activities and had the whole pedestrian friendly and everything, and it's not consistent.
Okay, I'm sorry, I just have one more comment. Oh, okay.
Sure.
Go ahead, Chris.
No, you
No, you finished.
Okay. I also want to say that I think it would be, it's a great idea that we send a letter to the police commission, especially if we think that their contract with this tow company is in violation because they closed the gauge or whatever reason. We don't even care what it is, but they're in violation. And for us to speak, there's a new woman who was just approved today by City Council. Her last name is Aubrey. Her father, I guess, was a big civil rights leader. She's a former city attorney, recently retired after 30 years. So maybe she's familiar with our, South LA and some of the issues that we've had here, since her father was a civil rights leader. And we can say, look, it's about our quality of life, and point out those issues. So I think that's a great idea. Even if it's just during general public comments, you get a minute or so. I think I told you I spoke on something to do with trees, and the next thing you know, boom. So it's can be very effective to go and actually, because most of the people who speak at the general public comments with the police commission, they're really mean, nasty people who are just calling the police and the commissioners everything you can imagine, every mean name you can imagine. So when there's someone who's actually advocating for something important about the quality of life for the community members, it's something that's heard there.
Good point. I forwarded a photograph to Siobhan tonight of a non-luxury van parked right at the curb, right where the handicap parking posted sign is. So even if someone was to avail themselves of the handicap parking on the street side of that curb, they have no clearance to be able to access the sidewalk because the van is parked literally right blocking access. And so I thought maybe the police, because that's violation of the federal ADA laws. The sidewalk is supposed to be there for access, and to block a handicap parking vehicles access to safe travel was just, it's like, I just saw it.
So, okay, Siobhan, I'll have the transcript of all this conversation tomorrow morning. Will you have time to, if there's anything that you feel needs incorporated, so that when we go tomorrow night, you get your 3 to 5 minutes, I'll show some photos while you're talking, and we can just vote and not have this conversation a second time? I mean, I've already gotten an email from at least one board member saying, you're never getting through that agenda in 2 hours, which is true, because we've never gotten through any agenda completely.
Oh, I think
in
once,
2 hours. Once in 20 years.
I'm happy to. If you can send me the transcript tonight, I will spend some
I
time on
won't,
it tomorrow.
it won't spin out till the morning. Well, it might,
Okay.
it might. So if I get it later tonight.
As long as I have it tomorrow morning. I have a recording session at 8, and I think we're done at 10. So I've got about 2 hours.
All right, well, I think an email comes from Zoom to the president email, so I'll check it in a couple of hours. And it may have a link that you could access.
Right.
And it would be the audio transcript. If it is there, otherwise I won't see it on my computer till the morning.
And you can always go to YouTube and,
Yeah, but that's not a transcript.
No, but I'm just saying, and listen to it and pull out the important parts if it's that important.
Well,
I was speaking to Siobhan, not to you, Laura.
I know, you're right. Okay, anything else for old business? Probably not previous cases, and it is 8:58, so
Time to go.
it is time to go. Thank you.
All right, good night. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you, Laura.
Bye.
Bye, Siobhan.
Thanks.